Level 5 leader, Jim Collins characterizes as someone who is very competent mixed with humility. In the book, Good to Great by Jim Collins. By the way, if you haven't read that, run, don't walk to read that book. It's an amazing book. And for those of you that are listeners, you're likely a listener because you're listening to this podcast. If you're a listener and you enjoy listening, the audible version of that book is actually read by Jim Collins. And Aaron, I always like it when the author reads their own book. Oftentimes they hire a narrator, a guest narrator, read the book, right? But I always like it when the author actually reads their own book, because then they emphasize the parts of the book that they want to emphasize. I always feel like I'm sitting right, I'm sitting at their feet, drinking right from the author, when the author reads it himself. But in the book, he talks about, different levels of leadership, the different levels of leadership. And he characterizes those from level 1 to level 5, level 1 to level 5. And at about level 3, and he defines that. I won't go through everything. I'm going to encourage you to read it, to go through it. But spend particular time on the chapter where he talks about the 5 levels of leadership. Level 3 is when you're starting to be kind of an effective manager. You haven't quite made the transition from manager to leader, but it's effective. And frankly, if dentists can become an effective manager, they'll be able to take their practice somewhere. But it won't be fully potentiated. You won't get to your full potential. Level 4 leadership. He characterizes, level 4 leadership, Jim Collins characterizes as a genius with 1,000 helpers. And that's where a lot of good dentists rise to. Genius with 1,000 helpers. Now, you're not going to have 1,000 team members, but that would be like a really good dentist, with 8 or 10 team members, and it allows you to get somewhere, and frankly, fairly impressive, but not to your full potential. However, you will hit your full potential if you become a level 5 leader. Level 5 leader, Jim Collins characterizes as someone who is very competent mixed with humility. So in other words, it's someone that is very good at what they do. They're very competent. They're very accomplished, blended with a unique blend of humility. What happens sometimes when someone becomes very accomplished? They start believing their own press, right?
Right. So I remember 2 things. I read it a long time ago. He uses the word servant leader, and then he talks about, like they are the people who are willing to cut off a leg. They're very decisive. In other words, they believe in the future, but they are really, really realistic, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to do the right thing right now.